So today's review is from a brand I've not really heard of before, Gallagher Fragrances, specifically Amongst Waves. So this apparently is a kind of oceanic fruity fragrance. It came out in 2017 and it's unisex. So I'm actually pretty interested in trying it because usually like aquatic style fragrances, they're just purely aquatic, but this one is mixed with quite a lot of fruit notes. So we're gonna see how this goes and see how fruity and aquatic it is. Okay, so immediately, it's actually much stronger than I was expecting. The first notes, I would say, so the top notes, there's melon, green apple, lime, ginger, pomegranate, and orange. So the strongest out of all those is definitely the lime. That really comes through. It's one of those juicy, fresh, like really you just got a lime and just like squeezed it. So yeah, it really bursts out when you first put it on. But the second strongest, also very prominent, I have to say the melon. It has that cantaloupe sort of scent to it, which I quite like. I mean, how often do you come across cantaloupe in fragrances? It definitely has that sweetness, but it's also extremely fresh and very crisp. Now, I will say also the ginger and the green apple are pretty strong as well in their own right. Definitely not as strong as the lime and the melon, but the ginger as a note in general is very sharp, very prominent, like it's hard to miss a ginger note. And the green apple has a certain crispness as well. The pomegranate and the orange are kind of less prominent in this case, but yeah, it's really that cantaloupe and the lime that kind of pierces through everything. But then you have the middle notes, which consist of sea salt, some water notes, iris, and tulip. So the aquatic notes are very obvious as well. You could definitely tell it's watery, kind of dewy, fresh, that sort of thing. Now, I wouldn't say it's super oceanic in terms of like saltiness with that sea salt. It's more like a freshwater type of smell rather than just the ocean. A very slight difference, but and the iris and the tulip, they're also pretty vague, I would say. They add a little bit of sweetness to this fragrance, but it's a very natural, very faint, distant type of sweetness from those florals. And there's only two base notes, patchouli and vanilla. The vanilla comes through a little bit. You can kind of detect that slight sweetness and the slight warmth of the vanilla. The patchouli, I don't really get much patchouli. It's a pretty specific scent, but it's pretty faint here. Again, interestingly, because top notes usually don't last, too long, but the top notes here are actually pretty long-lasting. It seems they really stick around. Definitely, again, the lime, the melon, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of green apple. Overall, this is a very, very refreshing, very enjoyable type of fragrance. It's one of those fragrances that it's more complex than I thought it was going to be. Because usually these types of light aquatic fragrances, they have a few main notes, and most of the rest is not, much to talk about. But this is actually more, it has more layers, more complexity, more character for this type of fragrance, which I quite enjoy. And in general, it has a very nice natural type of smell. If you're looking for kind of a fresh fragrance that, has some staying power and actually smells pretty good and not bland and not boring, this is a really good option. I really like the combination of the water notes with the fruit notes, because that doesn't happen too often. Usually, again, when there's an aquatic fragrance, it's pretty pure to its aquatic notes, like Zerja 40 Knots. That's a pretty pure sea salt aquatic type of fragrance. There's, you know, some other notes in there, but it's like a pure product with that. This, I like the smell of the cantaloupe, the melon, actually, quite a lot. I think it adds a certain, like, body, I guess, to the entire fragrance. Then the lime as well, because it's actually very sharp. So it kind of balances out all those other notes. Now, in terms of unisex capability, this is definitely a nice unisex option just because it's so natural. Again, all the fruit notes smell very authentic to the real thing. The water notes smell authentic. The florals are not really that sweet, so it's not going to make it hyper feminine or anything. Again, just very, very natural notes. Kind of tropical in a way. So definitely a good unisex option. Now, longevity. This is a lighter fragrance in general, but there is a certain prominence that I did not expect in this, because usually these types of fragrances don't last very long. But this, again, I think it's from the fruit notes. They have a certain just power, I guess. This is definitely a longer lasting fragrance. I would say probably between 5 and 6 hours, which is pretty good for this type of light fragrance. And projection as well is definitely above average. Because, like, even as I'm just moving around my wrist here, it's very prominent, the projection. In contrast to, you know, some other aquatic fragrances, which are more of an intimate type of fragrance. So you really have to get up close to somebody to smell it. But this is definitely a fragrance that will be noticed by other people if you wear it. You know, it's strong enough to actually project out from your skin. So it actually has surprisingly good performance for this type of light fragrance. And in general, I just think it's a pretty unique type of fragrance. Because again, with the aquatic notes, they tend to just stick to themselves, but this takes a whole bunch of fruit notes and puts them together into kind of this like fruit cocktail sort of thing, and makes a very unique mixture, I guess, especially because the fruit notes that are used are themselves unique when they're combined together, like when you mix lime with melon, you know, or the ginger with anything, because ginger's not a popular note really, or the pomegranate, things like that. So you mix them all together and it creates this very unusual, intriguing sort of mixture. So I really enjoy it. I think it's actually a very refreshing, just kind of fun type of fragrance. Definitely a summertime fragrance just because it's so light and fresh, although good for springtime as well. It's just one of those types of bubbly, fresh, crisp fragrances, but definitely this is a good one. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Amongst Waves from Gallagher. If you found this video helpful, of course, you can leave a like and maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.